And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at a game called Almadi. Now, this is a game about caravans in the Middle East, and I have to say that the theme of this had no appeal to me. However, I saw tiles in the game, and I tend to like tile-laying games. So this one, though, has some specific rules about laying tiles, but when you place them, you get to do stuff. Let's see. The concept of this game is very simple. You're going to have a tile here with rows 1 through 4 and tiles randomly put there. You're going to build a pool of tiles at the beginning of the game made up of 4 different types, and the number of tiles is based on the number of players. And on a player's turn, they're going to take a tile from here, any of the 8 tiles they want. They're going to place it in their own area. You have 4 tiles that you start with, but you must place it in the same row that you placed the last one. And it must be adjacent to another tile that exists. And then you draw another tile and replace it. So maybe the next time I draw one, I'll take this one here from number 3 and place it like this, which is then replaced. And then maybe in the future, I'll take another tile from number 3 and place it there, etc. Now, what you're trying to do is you're trying to make it so that you place an arrow next to an icon. Because when you do that, as you place the tile, you'll activate whatever it does. With the exception of these jars here, those are simply points at the end of the game. So at the end of the game, you'll count the number of these that have arrows pointing to them, and they're worth points. The rest of the actions will happen as you play the tile. The actions are rubies. When you place an arrow next to a ruby, you get a ruby. Pretty simple. When you place an arrow next to a hammer, you get a mosaic. There's a deck of mosaics that's face up, and you just take the top one. And there are different mosaics for you to pull from. If you place it next to a market stall, an arrow, then you'll draw from a market stall pile and put that in front of you, and these will show different goods of different types that you'll put in front of you. If you place it next to a moon, then you get to take an objective. So there are different objectives in the game that players are attempting to accomplish, and you'll have different ones each time. When you take an objective, for example, this says I have oases greater than or equal to 5 at the end of the game. If I do, I get 6 points. If I don't, I lose points. So you have to be careful when taking objectives. You can even take an objective from someone else if they haven't completed it yet when you take one of these. And finally, the last thing are the flying carpets. When you put an arrow next to a flying carpet, you may then move another tile, or that tile, it's up to you, to another spot in the grid. So this is a way to put tiles exactly where you want them to be. When you move a tile, if that causes more arrows to make icons go off, then you will get to do it again. And you can do it up to 3 times. Either way, once you're done taking the tile and placing it, your turn is over and the next person goes. The game will continue till each player has 16 tiles in front of them, and you'll know that happens because there won't be any more tiles to fill this up. And at that point, you go to scoring. A few other things I should mention. When you're placing tiles down on the board, you'll notice that there's a little arrow here. That arrow always needs to be pointing up, so you're not going to be able to rotate tiles when placing these on the board. Also, there's an advanced variant of the game that has a bunch of characters where you start with a couple characters, and there's also some characters face up. And if you have rubies, you can spend those rubies to buy the characters. Some give them extra abilities, like this one here says at the end of the game, take an extra turn, and some give you points. Like this gives you a point for every 2 of these type of goods in your markets. So that's a variant you can play. I recommend you always do. At the end of the game, you're going to score for many different things. Oases are going to score you as long as they're in groups, and whoever has the largest group will score bonus points. Having caravans of camels together will allow you to transport a certain number of goods by this chart that's listed here in the rules. So for example, if I have 3 camels, I can transport 10 goods. I'll then count up the goods in my markets and the cards that I've taken over the course of the game, and I'll get points for the number of goods that I can transport. You get points for the clay pots. You also get points for each palace that's adjacent to an oasis and market, and you also get points for the oases and markets that are next to them. And you can take these and put them on top of a palace to score the palace twice. Now you might wonder why they have different backgrounds on them. That's just for some of the different goals that you're trying to get. And don't forget, goals are going to score you points or not. Rubies will score you points for whoever has the most if you're playing the base game. Otherwise, they don't score you many points. You get 1 for every 2. And instead, in the advanced game, you score points based on your characters. And that's it. Whoever has the most points is the winner. So there's some parts of this where I really like how the components look. Like the mosaics, they're very pretty. The card quality is decent. I like the square cards. The tiles themselves are okay. Some people I played with complained that they couldn't see the arrows in the corner here, which show you what direction. I don't think it's that big of a deal because you just look at the picture too to see which way it's face up. But I didn't find that to be a problem. The game comes with a card that shows you scoring, and it also shows you what the different abilities are when you point the arrows at them. I thought the rules were pretty easy to understand. Everything fits tightly in a plastic insert. But yeah, I mean, other than the fact that the game doesn't look tremendously exciting, I think the components are fine. I was very happy with Almadi. This is a game that after I played it, I immediately wanted to play it again and again because it was just a very enjoyable experience building this grid in front of you. And I think a lot of that is the fact that you get to build these combos and you just take actions. So in one essence, you're building a scoring grid. You're trying to put a lot of oases together. You're trying to put a lot of caravans together and make sure you have a lot of goods. You're trying to put the palaces next to oases and trading posts so they get you points. Right. But you're also trying to match those arrows up and score things. And that's where the game is fun. Because you match an arrow up to this and that, and you get a flying carpet, then you move it here, and you match it, and then you move it somewhere else. And that building upon stuff and taking multiple actions per turn just gives you these hits of like, woo! It's just a very exciting thing. And the game doesn't overstay its welcome. I believe 16 tiles works out well. Sometimes you build a nice 4x4 grid, but sometimes they're all over the place. I will say, I think it's very important to play the advanced game. I played both, and the advanced game just gives you some special abilities, like maybe there's a character who lets you build outside the grid, or somebody who lets you, when you take a tile, you can put it in a row up or down, or just one that gives you bonus points at the end of the game, and that's what whatever it tells you get bonus points for, you start focusing on that. I like that aspect a lot. I don't think it's that overly complex, and honestly, I think they should have just put it in the game itself. But that's pretty much the game. Like I said, I don't think it's a looker. I don't think people walking by the table will stop necessarily, but I was highly entertained. It's easy to get into. There's a lot of different, moving of tiles, but every turn when you take a tile, you're trying to place it so you can go, boom, I got to do something fun. And because of that, because every time you place a tile, you get to do something fun, at the end of the game, when you score, yes, you are joyed if you win, but even if you don't, you still had kind of a magic carpet, magical ride through the game. So this is a mid-weight style game. There's not, I think the game would have too much analysis paralysis if you could rotate the tiles and or put them in any row you want. You can't. So you have 8 tiles that go in maybe 4 or 5 different spots. Great. How do I do that? Which one will work where? And you'll be sitting there thinking about it. But at the end of the day, you had enough fun playing through the game, laying the tiles down, that the joy of winning is almost secondary nature to that, and that makes a game a lot of fun for me. So that's Almadi. Check it out. I'm Tom Vasel. We'll see you next time. Dice Tower Judgment approved.